Today I'm going to be talking about the independent project. So first going to go over the syllabus to go over those changes that I made due to the snow day. Then I'm just going to spend the rest of the time in this recording going over what your independent project will be like, talking about the lab report and the presentation. So I'm going to start with the syllabus. So I emailed you all on Sunday night, prior to the snow day on Monday, that the in-person classes are changed. So that's the major change to this syllabus. So the in-person classes are now on the 4th, the 9th, and the 11th. I did make one other change since I emailed you. So originally the neuroethics unit was going to be before Thanksgiving break, but I changed that to after Thanksgiving break. I wanted to have all the data collection and data analysis for your independent projects done before Thanksgiving break. So then after, all you would have to do is write your presentation and your paper. So that is the only major change I made since I last emailed you, and this new updated one can be found on Canvas. So that is what the rest of the semester will look like. Basically, all independent project with just one day for neuroethics. All right, so independent project guidelines. So this can be found in the pages section. I have a new little subsection called independent project here. So you can find generally what the independent project is about here. You can also, there's paper guidelines, presentation guidelines, and the presentation rubric I'm going to be using to grade your papers. And your presentations. So for your independent project, mainly you're just answering a question based off of previous research. So the experiment itself, sorry about that. I'm gonna make sure the volume's on. So the experiment itself, it's just anything that can legally and physically be done in the classroom. So you will be collecting data in class. You're going to be using each other as participants. I still have to figure out how exactly that's going to work logistically. I might have the front room people come in one day, the back room people come in another day, or I might have the front room people come in for the first half of class, the back room people come in for the second half of class, or something else. I think I'm just going to see what you all come up with for your independent projects and then organize it from there. So it's really anything you want to do. The only restrictions are that, it has to be able to be done in the classroom in a relatively short amount of time. And the main requirement is that it needs to use at least one of the experimental techniques from the semester. So you need to include at least heart rate, GSR, or cold pressor. Another major restraint is that you need to have at least 2 experimental conditions. So for example, for our cold pressor experiment, we had 3. We had no, low versus high distraction. For our polygraph experiment, we had 2, truth versus deception. So you need to have at least 2 experimental conditions, like a control versus experimental, or you don't even have to have a control if you don't want to. You can just have 3 experimental. So those are the major 2 restrictions. Other than that, you can really do anything you want. It doesn't even have to do with psychology if you don't want to. You can have video games, you can have like math problems. It doesn't even have to do with neuroscience. If you're more interested in counseling psych, some people have done meditation studies in the past, or social psych, or IO, anything in the world, as long as you're somehow measuring heart rate, GSR, or using the cold pressor. So today, during class, you're going to spend the day thinking about this project and coming up with an idea. So we're going to spend today and the next class kind of just making those ideas concrete, getting everything ready to go. So we have 2 whole classes to get that together, so I don't want you to feel rushed. And then for our first in-person class on the 4th, we're going to start collecting that data. So you will supply all the supplementary materials. So if you need data collection sheets, if you are doing like a neuropsychological test or a cognitive test and you need papers for them to fill out, or if you're having them do math problems or a maze, or if you're having them listen to music, you're going to supply all those materials. Also, if you are designing your experiment to be done in pairs, you will need to write instruction sheets for your participants to do on their own. And then data will be analyzed using a t-test or an f-test. That's not limited. Those are just the 2 tests that we went over in class. If you want to do something else, that's okay, but let's talk about it first. I don't really want this to be more complicated than it needs to be. So that's the independent project. So now I'm just going to go over the report and presentation guidelines. All right. Paper guidelines. So this can be found on Canvas in the Pages section, as I just showed you. So this is due December 9th. This is the last day of class before finals week. So this is really just the same thing as your last two lab reports of the cold presser and polygraph. You're going to introduce the topic that you chose and why the method you chose is appropriate for your topic. So you need to make some justification of why you're doing heart rate versus GSR, or why you think cold presser is the best. So why, with the topic you choose, why did you choose that specific method? In this time, you're going to pick 3 empirical research articles that you found to support the above information. So in the past, we've only included 1 paper, but this time you're including 3. So we are going to go over that together in the next class, so not today. So we're going to make sure that you actually can find 3 research articles to support your claims before we start data collection. And then you'll just finish out by stating the aims and hypothesis of the study, just like usual. So the method, this is more important than in the past to make this very clear, because you're the only person who knows how to run your experiment. I have no idea what you're doing. It's up to you to tell me how to run your experiment here so I can understand it. So specifically with the procedure, how exactly is that going to work? So for participants, I just wanted to clarify some things based off of your previous lab reports. So if someone is absent on data collection day, that goes in the participant section. But if someone was present but their data was unusable, that will go in the data analysis section. So for an example, for your polygraph experiment papers, there were 3 people absent, so you talked about that in the participant section, and then there was an additional person's data that was unusable because they didn't put the markers in, so that goes in the data analysis section. Just wanted to make that clarification. Everything else is the same as your previous lab reports. So in your results, you'll state the tests you used, any findings, and I do want you to include graphs here. It's up to you whether those are line or bar graphs. So if you run 2 tests, so for example, in our cold presser experiment, we did no, low, high distraction for pain rating, no, low, high distraction for tolerance, etc. So we had 4 little blurbs in our results section. So however many tests that you run, that's how many blurbs you'll have in your results section here. So if you only do like control versus experimental, you'll only have 1 little piece in your results section. That's perfectly fine. So one of the take-home messages I want you to take from today is that this should not be more complicated than it needs to be. This is just so you can use the methods we talked about in class in your own way, in a way that would be most interesting to you. So please do not make this more complicated than it needs to be, and I'll work with you today to figure out something that is workable but still interesting. And then for your discussion, same as usual, you'll just start by restating your hypothesis, why the results supported or didn't support, and this is important here. I found in your lab reports not a lot of people talked about why. They just went right into the limitations. So tell me why you think that it wasn't supported before you get into the limitations. And then talk about limitations and why those are limitations, and then future directions. So that's your lab report, and again, this is found on Canvas in the Pages section and Independent Project section. So the presentation guidelines, so these are due a little bit earlier. So you will email these to me by the end of the day on December 2nd. You're going to record yourself giving the presentation. I'm going to post a demo of how a couple of different ways that you can record yourself to do that. So I will post that recording later in the semester. So you're going to record yourself giving the presentation, email it to me, and then I'm going to post it to Canvas as a discussion post. So you do not need to post or submit your presentation to Canvas. All you need to do with your presentation is email it to me, and I will take care of the rest. So I'm going to post it as a discussion post. I'm going to assign students to listen to your presentation. They're going to ask questions about it, and then you're going to answer the questions on a different day. It's going to be about 10 minutes. I will take off points if it's severely over or severely under. And just like with all presentations, limit those large blocks of text. This is out of 50 points. 40 points is going to be from the presentation itself, and then 10 is going to come from asking questions about other presentations in the discussion posts. And then this is just a general guideline of what you can include in your presentation, but more specifics can be found in the rubric. I'm not going to go over the rubric today, but it is on Canvas for you to look over. So that's basically the presentation. And then the last thing I'll go over in this recording is what you will be doing today. So this assignment that you're going to submit to me today is worth 20 points towards your overall grade. This is really just meant to help you plan for your independent project, to help you iron out all the kinks and so forth. So this is what you'll be spending the rest of the time doing, just coming up with things. And feel free to talk to me throughout this process if you just have absolutely no idea what you're doing, or you can't come up with any ideas, or you think it's too complicated, anything like that. I'm here. So you can just reach out to me and we can figure this out together. And yeah, that's all you'll be doing today. So I will talk to you all later as you submit these assignments.